Now it's recording. I see something there.
Yeah, Peter, forgive me. I'll go again. Forgive me for this. Welcome to Making a Difference, a show here on Phoenix FM where we get to interview the people who are making a difference in our neighbourhoods, communities and places of work for the betterment of all. A show where you will find that the people being interviewed will support, inspire, challenge and above all else enable you to be the best that you can be when it comes to making a difference in your own life, neighbourhood, community and place of work. I'm Micheal Daly and I'm now joined by Peter Herman, who is a professor at the Law School of Central South University in China. His specialities include social policy, social economy, history of European integration and social policy and non-government organisations. His work has brought him to such countries as Austria, Hungary, Finland, Poland, Italy, Russia and of course to here in Ireland. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you, Professor Peter Herman, to Making a Difference.
Thank you, Michael, for inviting me, and it's a pleasure for me and an honor to meet you this way after many years meeting you in person on one of these exchange programs.
Peter, thanks very much for your patience. It's been a while from my end to get you to this stage to talking to us, and I remember the first time I did meet you was in Germany. I know you're in Germany at the moment, and great country, great people. I had the privilege of spending a week there. Giving courses, and I was always immensely proud with the way you talked about Ireland. It's easy for Irish people to talk about how Ireland is, but you were in Cork at the time, and the way you talked about Cork, you didn't say all was great in Ireland, of course not, but the way you talked about that, and I'm very aware you're in Berlin at the moment and you're teaching in China. Can I just ask you how that came about, or like what was the lead up to going to China?
Well, it's a little bit a complicated story, and well, not complicated really, but accidents and a weird way that actually a colleague who had been at some stage in Cork as well went first to Australia and then ended up in China in the city where I am now, but working at another university, and she asked me if I would join her there. That was a joint venture between Wales and this Chinese university. So I had been kind of a little bit known, at least in China, possibly, and went back after, I think, 3 years teaching economics. I went back, worked for a while in Munich and then in Łódź in Poland, and got a call, as simple as that, sounds simple, if I would join this human rights center at the law school and at the Central South University, which was a very great pleasure and honor for me, because it is in different ways a challenge. The legal system is completely different. And then, of course, human rights is an issue where everybody, when I say I'm at a human rights center in China, they look at me, they stare at me and say, human rights in China doesn't exist. I can confirm, I can assure you it does exist. And there is a huge and interesting debate happening there.
So is it an exciting time to be in China then around talking about human rights? Is it no doubt a challenging time, but are you enjoying the challenge of that? And is exciting a wrong word to be using?
Well, before I came here, in a way, back to Germany, before I had been caught in Germany, I got a flight already back, but then I couldn't, they canceled the flight. That was in March. I went to conferences first in Russia and then in Austria. So I experienced the virus in China and then later here in Europe. And this is in a way, or it's linked to what I said, that the understanding of rights is a different one because it's embedded in the entire culture. And of course, there had been probably as well cases where people had not only not been happy, but opposing or whatsoever. But my assistant actually, she said, our village decided that we put ourselves under quarantine. I said, what? And this was not a small village with 20 people or something like an Irish estate. It was a large, well, for European places, a large city. And she said, yeah, well, the situation is so and so, and this is the only way to get control over it. And this is part of law as well, that you have to consider the entire culture and the acceptance of law. And in a way, it's exciting as well, especially in the light of human rights debates, to see the different acceptance of measures in the different countries. And this is, of course, only a small part of what makes up human rights. But as well, it is an important part because it shows the entire cultural issues that are linked. You cannot look at the law and say this is written down and that is what makes up the law. I remember actually a kind of funny story when I lived in Ireland and there was the zero tolerance debate, and I'd been in Dublin. Saw a policeman nearby and thought, well, traffic light is red, don't cross the street. There's no car coming, no nothing, but zero tolerance. So he passed me, crossed the street without any need, so he didn't want to catch anybody else. Said, okay, now I know what zero tolerance means in Ireland. And of course, it is not what it means literally. Zero tolerance means zero tolerance, and even if there is a child in the middle of the street, you don't go because the traffic light is red. Of course, you save the life of the child, and of course, if there is no car coming, you even cross the road. And this is important as well to understand. In this context now, there is a kind of collective responsibility people feel, which, to be honest, I miss here in Germany and in Europe. Here in Germany, the federalist system, every county, every land does what they think is necessary or what they think is needed. It is, of course, an extremely difficult situation. Nobody really knows what is the best. But at least they should try to find a common ground and not compete in terms of what they define as collective responsibility.
Peter, listen to you talking there, and there's a couple of things I'd love to ask and that are coming. That quest for knowledge and that quest for, we can come to the justice and the social justice, but that quest for knowledge, and we were talking before about books, and was that something that was in your childhood? Was that quest for knowledge something you've seen in your home, or like where did it come from, or who, or did anyone install that in you?
Well, you may even say it's because it was not discussed in my home, more the opposite. I thought it's a kind of provocation. You see that it is not the case what they tell you. There must be something more. And I did something kind of stupid in terms of the job market development and in a way, you can say I'm privileged that I'm old enough. When I studied, you could study. You didn't subscribe to courses. Let's say this way: you studied. You could choose a subject. You could choose different subjects, which I did. First sociology. Then then I don't know actually the sequence exactly, but I had been grown up in the West Germany, in the Federal Republic. I studied then for some time in the GDR, German Democratic Republic, as well, that still existed at the time, studying political science there, studied economics, studied philosophy, which is not what you should do. You should specialize today, and you should just do your own small little thing. But it was kind of many philosophers supposedly said this: as more as I know, or as more as I study, as more I know that I don't know enough. And this was kind of, yeah, there was something coming up, and I thought, well, this is interesting. I have to dive more into it. And instead of really diving more into it, you do, but at the same time, there's another door opening. And this is something I always said, I never ended studying.
Like in terms of that, then you kind of went into the, is it fair to say, the social sciences field, and is that the area you're in, or what brought you to where you are now in terms of the work that you're doing? Was that something again that just developed, or was that something that you seen growing up, or was that something from your experience growing up in Germany and GDR? I don't was that a conscious decision to go and do what you did, or did you fall into it, or how did that come about?
Well, it's a little bit both of this. A conscious decision. You fall into something, meaning there is an opportunity, but then there is as well, where I'm hesitating now to say it, there are personalities that open you the way. And just this law thing, I'm doing quite a lot of law over the last years, which was more by accident. I had been asked to write for the Max Planck Institute in Munich. Max Planck Institute at that time for foreign and international social law. I was asked to write reports on the development of social law in Ireland, which I did. I accepted with pleasure, meaning I had to really dive into law as well. And then in this position, I have had the opportunity to stay longer periods in Munich. And there was one, he was the founder of this institute, Hans F. Zacher, for some strange reason not as much known as he should be known. But he was, well, I think what you call mentor. He was at the end of, well, after some time there was a friendship developing, and it was kind of funny. I remember sometimes, well, I had been, I don't know, 20, 30 years younger than he was, and he was definitely the expert, and he had a wide knowledge, and not only ask me this and I'll tell you the answer, but really thinking about it. And he always said, please tell me, what do you think about it? And I'm so interested, and what is your opinion? And it's so valuable for me, for him, as experienced old academic, to learn from me, which was not just said for the reason of friendliness. It was his conviction, and this kind of approach to life, to science, to social science, is of course something that you take with you, and you think about, yes, that is so enriching to your own approach, that then you have the personality, and then something comes up, and you think, okay, that's it. Why should I? Now I say it, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but then you say, why should I go for a fixed job? In the extreme case, starting with 20, doing 40 years the same, and not having any experience. Why not check out different things? As I said, I wouldn't recommend it to everybody, because it has, of course, serious problems going with it in terms of material problems or questions, in terms of health issues, in terms of making friendships in different places. So still, I wouldn't regret it. I would recommend it and say this is the only way, but there are different ways of doing things. And it was so enriching, and I hope at least, especially today when looking at the way universities develop, that I can still save something of this this way of research, of this approach or attitude as academic responsibility, what I would call so. Instead of just do your master, or first your BA, then your master, pay the money and do the thing in 3 years or 1 year or whatever the terms and conditions are. You have to study, it's an ongoing process.
Pete, it's refreshing to hear you talk in such a way as someone who is living their life, like walking that talk in terms of moving from place to place. Yeah, calling it as it is, there's a price that comes with that, but there's also great upsides to that as well, and that's maybe something we'll touch on. I'm just curious in terms of the amount of travel that you do, and you do travel, and you see many cultures and many. Was that something that appealed to you as a young man or as a young person growing up, or is that something, have you always wanted to travel, or?
No, actually, well, the one thing is you again come to opportunities. When I grew up, flying was extremely expensive and only something very privileged people could do and did. It was just for business, for holidays. It was really the very rich. And I remember, I think my first flight was when I was 32 or something like this. My daughter was about 3 when she was first going with me to London. And actually the first flight, I remember this was something, it was not convincing you that flying is a nice thing, because the pilot actually he thought I'm Formula One pilot and I have to really do the sporty thing. But it's something I had to do if I wanted to get deep into things. The first time, and this is not appealing as well, the first time, for different reasons, I just went to the meeting. I knew airports, I knew hotels, and I knew meeting rooms, because you don't have time to stay a day longer, or it's all new for you. You have to prepare everything. And then I got into something I call then museum jogging, because I was interested in arts. And I said, well, if you are in this place, then at least go to a museum, even if you have only 2 hours. You know, you don't see much, but you see at least something. And which had been then bringing me to most exciting experience. If you can imagine, you stand in front of the Guernica by Picasso, and there's only security there. And you just have this impression of this magnificent painting on your own. There's nobody else. And it's kind of, you have to concentrate not to cry, or you just cry, because you know about the background, you know what happened, why he painted this. Experiences like this, and then again you get deeper into it, and you enjoy it more and more. And you sometimes, no, this is over the point, you sometimes think, right, there is a meeting as well, but actually I want to go to this concert, or to meet these people or whatsoever. And it's difficult to find a balance. And it's as well something where I had been traveling then quite a lot to stay in different places. For a week, for 3 months, for a year or longer. And I appreciate it really, at least to be able to some extent to get known of people's daily life. And I just mentioned Hans Zacher. He was a member of I don't know how many academic bodies, and he was really pure academic. He was president of the Max Planck Society as well for some time. And at the same time, I remember from my first longest stay in China, he, most likely not pronounced 100% correctly. She was a student, and she was such a challenge for me in a positive way that I really learned so much from her. Whenever we discuss something after the teaching lessons or whatsoever, it's exciting then to really see or to see what the real problems are, what the real. Now she was young, I don't know, 20, 25 or something. What is the youth in China? What are they thinking? What are their problems? What are their hopes? And this is something you have to know if you teach economics or law. You can't say this is the book, just learn this. You have to know what people think about it.
But Peter, when you talk to you and spend time, and as I've been lucky to do that, limited and all as it is, you have a great, and you know this Irish word, you have a great, and I don't even know if it is an Irish word now, when I'm going to say it, you may be able to correct me, you have a great graw for people. You have a great interest in people. You have a great curiosity around people. And I put that down to Peter, and you can tell me this, that you had a great or wanting to have a great insight and a great sense of social justice. You just get that from me when you talk to that this thing about social justice and what is social. And I notice the intellectual, but also you want to see it in practice. And it's more than just teaching it. It's like seeing people grow and develop, interested in people growing and develop, and then in its own way seeing societies grow and develop in the best way, not necessarily Peter's way, but the best way. Is that a fair reflection? Is that a fair insight to you, or?
I think it is. Thank you. But I think it's if you are interested in humans are social beings, and at the same time, if you are social scientists, you have to be interested in human beings, because one doesn't exist without the other. And social justice is something. Now, in a way, very simple way, you can say, if there is no social, you don't have social justice. So first think about what is social. And if as you said, I'm currently in Berlin, one of the richest countries of the European Union. I don't know, it's probably as well one of the richest cities in Germany. If you then hear, there are on 100 square meters, there are 14 people living. Now deduct from the 100 square meter 8 square meters for a toilet and utilities. What is left there for 14 people to live? And if we take the standard terms of the social, behaving, respecting each other, can you develop respect for other people if you're living under this pressure? How can children learn? How can they develop an understanding for respect if there's always somebody in your way? Because this is in your way if you cannot sit down and do your own thing. Being social means as well to have the space to be on your own and then to link back. If this is not given, we always look or frequently look at the countries, the so-called developing world or whatsoever, global south. It is happening in the rich Europe, and it is not an exception. It is not the rule, but it is not an exception. If you look at how much people struggle today in these areas, in the rich countries, making a living, the cost for accommodation is by 50% now, roughly. So 50% of your income goes for accommodation. Then in a system, this is frequently forgotten, like Germany, where the standards of health are relatively, I emphasize relatively good, you still pay a huge amount of money for health insurance. When I actually came back to Germany after leaving Ireland, I said, do you know what I pay to an Irish friend? I said, do you know what, I shouldn't mention him because he played a huge role as well for me, Joe Finnerty from Cork. I said, do you know what I pay for health insurance? No, I said what I paid. And he said, well, this is what you pay per year in Ireland. And you say you pay this for a month, per month. So you can imagine what it means, what you have left with an ordinary average income to make your living, to buy something nice, to go out for a meal, to go out for cinema, to go to a museum. It is not free. It had been free in the GDR. It's not free here in Germany. And there is this question frequently said in the former Germany, the two Germanys. You have had political control in the East, but at least you have had the social freedom. Everybody could go to the museum. Everybody could get education, and this is hugely stratified here. You can say whatever you want, but you still cannot afford to go to the museum, to go to the theater, or whatsoever. So balance, social justice is not something you can write down, but it is a lived system.
And Peter, no better person than yourself for living it, challenging it, studying it, teaching, writing about it, and thank God, we say, for good people in the world now more than ever, and you being one of them. Peter, I'm just conscious of the time, and we always finish this show by asking, is there a song, is there a piece of music, is there something you'd love us to play, and if so, why, and is there anyone you'd like to dedicate it to?
Well, a song, it's not a song, but perhaps you can go a little bit into this. I'm actually going later on, I go to my piano lessons, and perhaps you can play into it a little bit the first piano concert from Tchaikovsky, which I really like, and then I come to another person mentioning her, a friend, my friend, whatever you want, whichever term you want to use, who brought this lost spirit back to me, that I now play the piano again after I didn't play for 40 years. And I started up and I got motivated by her, really, because she loves music, she is into it. And I said, this is something you have to dig out, to get back into this. It's such a value as well to develop personalities and to have something that you can pass on as well.
So you'd like to dedicate it to her, Peter, is that?
Yes. I won't mention her name because she's too famous as artist.
But she'll know, and we'll do
it. At least you can get the first name. It's Simone. That's it.
Professor Peter Hermann, on behalf of Phoenix FM, as indeed all of us here at Making a Difference, our heartfelt thanks for talking to us today. We wish you every success and best wishes for the future, and thank you for making a difference.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and good luck with your further endeavors in this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Good health.